recently, Aaron, he just did a review of the Polk Audio, and I was hoping he'd be here so we could talk about it. But he did a review of the Polk Audio R200, the Reserve series, and we reviewed that when it first came out, right, Jana?
Yeah, you took measurements of that when it first came out.
Yeah, and I do measurements, and he did his measurements on the Klippel, so of course, extremely accurate. And I was like, man, that is it's not what mine was doing. He was saying it didn't have good bass, and I was like, man, out of all the bookshelf speakers that I have, like these have the most bass because they're pretty big.
Mm-hmm. They're pretty solid.
Pretty big for bookshelf speakers. I was like, man, that's weird. Like just showing different things. So I went and I remeasured mine yesterday, and it had a different response. So I don't know exactly what was happening there, but I also emailed the guys at Polk Audio to figure out what's happening there, and hopefully they get back to me. But it's one of those things where it's good that more people are doing measurements, because I think it actually would be good if most just normal users were able to do measurements just to make sure. Did you get a good speaker? Maybe you got a bad speaker. It happens. Maybe something got damaged in shipping. Who knows?
Maybe.
So it's kind of useful to
one of those weird, one of those little weird ring radiator things where it's like all like bent on one of the ones I had. Yeah. Yes. So, and it was from their like Atmos module. So it wasn't like any of the bigger speakers that I was actually reviewing. I didn't really review the Atmos module. It's just a matching module, right?
I was going to say that you broke it. Remember the Vanity one where it's like, you broke that, bro. You broke it.
I don't know what you're talking about. Denial.
Yeah, man. So anyway, I'm interested in hearing, because looking back, I was looking at some of the forums and some other people were saying, yeah, these speakers don't sound like these reviewers made it sound like. Oh. And so it's kind of tricky because it goes back to, for me, if I say something's good, I expect people to have a good experience, or to sound similar to what I described and what the measurements show. But when they say, hey, this is not what you've described here, it kind of makes, it reflects on me too. And that's why I'm happy to have some measurements. But hey, I remeasured them. They measure and sound the same as what I said they sounded like.
But then years ago. They come out? Those were like 2 or 3 years ago?
I think it looked like 2021.
Was it? No, wasn't it
before earlier? COVID? Maybe it was earlier than that.
I think it was before COVID.
Yeah, it could have been
BC, before COVID.
BC. Yeah.
The new BC.
So it's just that's a interesting thing, because who knows what happened. People are saying, maybe they changed it, maybe it was a bad batch. That happens, know.
One interesting thing that happened was when the new Prillis and like the S7T towers came out, they were sending them out to reviewers, and one guy was doing some measurements, and they literally measured within like half a dB of everything that came out of the factory. It was almost identical. So I don't think that's normal.
Yeah, right. So they must have changed something. Could they have changed something in manufacturing to make that would have an effect on the frequency response? I mean, that's the biggest question. Because if it's something that, like, if it was before COVID, let's say it was 2019, right? And then now we're in 2023. Are the newer ones? There was a whole parts shortage thing, there was a DAC fire, there was all this nonsense going on, and everything tripled in price. So maybe something that they used was like tripled or quadrupled in price, and they had to find some sort of.
I've seen crossovers change in the middle of it. They're supposedly the same speakers. Like, you get a different network. I've seen woofers be outsourced to a different manufacturer. Who knows if it's the same. So it's theoretically possible.
Well, what do you think about that? Let's say if they make a change, I feel
should
like
they tell you? Should they tell everybody?
I feel like they should
call it like the
kind of like a change log. Like if there's a firmware update, here are the changes that we made. I know they don't do that for hardware, but I kind of feel like
.2, right? It's like the .1, .2, .3.
Yeah, like different versions. I don't know. I don't know how to approach that. Because I just think that they should let people know when something has changed that would change the sound and call it a different version.
Right, right. They did that with synthesizers a lot. With especially with Dave Smith instruments, which is they would have the Prophet, right? 8 analog, 8 polyphonic analog synthesizer. You can play 8 notes at a time, right? And then they had the Rev 2 because they changed the oscillators. So when you change the oscillator, that's the sound generator. So if you were to be, you're at your friend's house or you're at the music store or whatever, and you're checking out this, oh, I like this one. And then you go, later on buy it and you're like, oh, this is the Rev 2. That's why it sounds different. You're trying to play things, and trying to make the exact same sound, and it's slightly different because they changed the, the oscillators, which are the tone generators. So yeah, slight little things can make it change. I don't know. We'll see. Are you going to get a new pair? How about what if Andrew? What if Aaron sends you his and you measure and you get the same thing? Then they're like totally and you swap with the other. You do another collab video. I got these when these released. This is how they measure, and now, boom, Aaron got a new pair, and this is how they measure.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happened there, but I just thought it was interesting the fact that people had measurements was how we could say for sure, not like this is different. Otherwise, it would just be like, oh, that guy must have been lying when he said that it had a lot of bass. Like, no, I'm playing the same song. I played the same song that he said didn't have bass. I recorded it and I put it in our group chat, and I used the U mic and I recorded. I'm like, this thing has a lot of bass. It's like the opposite. It had a lot of bass. Anyway, I thought it was an interesting thing that happened there. That's not something that usually happens.
That's not normal at all.
All right, if you would like to join us every week on Mondays at, what time is it? About 6 p.m. Central, which is the best time. That's where I am. Make sure you join us at youtube.com/Daily HiFi. We out.